What's up, guys? I'm Mike from StockedUp, and welcome back to the Stocks with Mike and Tom show. We had a really crazy day in the market today. The market was down about 2%. The Dow finished down about 650 points. We had some important earnings release after close today. And in this video, we're just going to be explaining what happened in the market today and what we think is going to be going on for the next week or so, because we are coming very close to the 2020 election. So there's a lot of volatility, a lot of crazy things going on in the market right now, and we're getting very close to the election, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity from that. So make sure you guys watch this video to the end, and if you guys aren't subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe to see our videos on your YouTube homepage every single day. But with that being said, Tom, what happened in the stock market today?
Yeah, the big stuff was that the Dow closed down over 600 points, and I actually have a list of the Dow 30 right here. There's actually one thing missing, but we can see that it's mostly all here, and it's almost all red. You can see Apple ended up coming green at the end of the day, but it was mostly all red for the Dow today. Some of the stocks down 3% even, and that's pretty big for the Dow stocks, considering they're mostly value stocks. But other than that, the market was really crazy, and the reason it was really down was because House Speaker Nancy Pelosi slammed the Trump administration on Monday as Washington fails to send more relief to Americans during a record spike in coronavirus cases. And CNBC reports this, and they say that the California Democrats' biting letter to House Democrats came only minutes before a nearly hour-long conversation with Steven Mnuchin that appeared to yield little progress towards a stimulus agreement. The chances of Congress approving a relief bill before Election Day, November 3rd, have all but evaporated. And we could really see that the market really tanked this morning off of this news. And also, there was some bad COVID numbers that came out where there's just more COVID going around. It's almost like that second wave that people have been talking about, and the numbers just keep going up. So it's just bad news on top of bad news. And, the market doesn't like that.
Yeah, the news is blaming the fall in the market today on the two things you just said with Pelosi and then the COVID numbers. But Tom and I were talking earlier, and we also think a lot of it just has to do with investor sentiment. I mean, it sounds crazy to say this, but we are about a week away from the election. And I think investors are just starting to trim their portfolios a little bit to de-risk themselves from the market. I mean, anything can happen with this election. And we all know that there's been a ton of volatility for the past month, but depending on who wins the election, that volatility can increase, the market can fall, it can rise. I mean, there's just a lot of risk, you could say, out in the market right now. And I just see part of this sell-off today as investors de-risking themselves.
Yeah, and there's a lot of uncertainty. Like, there's so many polls out right now, and some of them say that Trump's doing good. Some of them say Biden's doing good. Some of them say Biden's up by 15 points even. It's crazy, some of these polls. And the thing is that even in 2016, the polls almost weren't accurate whenever the election actually came around. So, the market likes to look at these polls as, uncertainty as well. And that's kind of unfortunate to see, because it seems like that really whichever side of the spectrum you're on, like if you watch CNN, obviously they're going to have polls that favor Biden. If you watch Fox News, they're going to have polls that favor Trump. And it just seems like, both sides are that way right now. And the stock market's just so undecided because of that.
I'm just excited. We're getting closer to the election. We're about a week away, and that should reduce some uncertainty in the markets, and it should just make it a little bit easier to trade. So I'm just glad that we're finally getting close, like really close to the election. What else happened in the market today?
Yeah, Chegg and Twilio actually reported earnings after the market closed today. And Twilio didn't have bad earnings, but we can see that their stock ended up going down anyways. And on the 1-minute chart, we can see their stock actually went up and then went right back down. And they hit a total revenue of $448 million for the third quarter of 2020, up 52% year over year, which is fantastic numbers. Their GAAP loss from operations of $112.3 million for the third quarter of 2020 compared to a loss of $94.7 million from the third quarter of 2019. So that's not the best number, but there's a few other numbers that came out. But the big thing is that they really increased their revenue, and the big problem is that you can see that even while they went up, in after hours, they're still down. So even if you would have had calls, or even if you're holding the stock long term, you're still upset to see that they beat revenue by 52% year over year, and they're still sitting pretty flat.
And Tom, can you see on this chart real quick? You see how we saw Twilio run up and then come right back down, and now we're pretty much flat, right? I would not be surprised if we see a lot of this type of movement I mean, we have some huge companies reporting earnings this week. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see movement like this with the rest of those companies. So we are, like I said, a week away from the election, and just with the market being very volatile as it is right now, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more of that movement.
Yeah, and here's some more companies that are going to be reporting before open tomorrow. And we have Pfizer, 3M, Caterpillar, LLY, Raytheon Technologies, these Sherwin-Williams. Even these are some pretty big stocks. We even have Harley Davidson and BP, and BP is a pretty big one because later in the week we're going to have Exxon and Mobil and Chevron reporting as well. So this could kind of give you an insight into the oil sector as well.
Absolutely. And then what happened with Chegg?
Yeah, Chegg actually reported earnings, but they actually missed by 9 cents. So, their EPS was 0.17, but their GAAP EPS of negative 0.29 was the miss of 9 cents. So while they actually had the non-GAAP earnings per share of 0.17, which beat it by 7 cents, their GAAP EPS of negative 0.29 missed by 9 cents. So it's kind of confusing, but their revenue was up 63.6% year over year and beat it by over $10 million. And their subscribers were 3.7 million compared to an estimate of 3.6 million. So it was really close on the subscribers with the estimate, but the revenue really beat year over year, just like Twilio did. And we see Chegg just come down again in after hours and then go flat.
Absolutely. So can you pull up a daily chart of Chegg real quick? We can see back in March, this stock was about $25, and it actually hit 80, or it actually hit just under $90 today. So this stock clearly benefited from COVID, and we can definitely see that in their numbers. And what were their numbers? The revenue grew 64% year over year. Like, that's amazing, right? But even though they had these amazing numbers, they fell on earnings. And that's because of they didn't meet expectations. They didn't fully meet those expectations. So just be careful while playing earnings like this. We've been warning everyone to be careful playing earnings like with Tesla and all these other crazy stocks right now. In a lot of scenarios in this type of market, even if you predict the direction correctly, you can still lose money on earnings. So just be careful with that. Was there any other news that happened today?
Not too big. The big stuff was really Pelosi in the morning, and that really sent the market down. And there was just a ton of news today about the market selling off. And I think this is actually going to actually trigger a lot of people to start selling off or actually giving a bearish sentiment now heading into the election.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I want to bring up the VIX. So, Tom, if you can go to the VIX index, VIX. So,
VIX.
yeah, VIX. So this is not VXX. This is the actual VIX index. And we can see that it finished up about 18% today. And basically what this index represents is the prices of SPX options. So seeing that the VIX is up a lot today, this shows that the price of SPX options are rising a lot. And when this usually happens, normally we see the market fall right after this, because if options prices are increasing, it means that market makers are expecting more volatility. And normally when this happens, we see the market fall. So I just wanted to point that out. The VIX is up a lot today. If you could go to a daily chart, Tom, we can see that we had a pretty big candle today on this daily chart, a pretty big green candle. And, last time we saw huge green candles like this, it was back during when COVID initially started to disrupt the markets. But just be careful. Just wanted to point that out as we are 1 week away from the election. So now let's get into our member of the day. Today's member of the day is a YouTube commenter, Gennaro, saying, great info as always, guys. showing some love for the YouTube algorithm, wishing you and the community a great trading week. So thank you so much, Gennaro, for just spreading a lot of positivity, and thank you for supporting us by commenting on yesterday's video. We really appreciate it. So now for the momentum plays for tomorrow, and the first one is Boeing. Had a pretty bad day today. Tom, what levels should we be watching?
Yeah, make Boeing fall right below 159. And they actually had some big news today about Boeing, Raythrop Grumman, I believe it is, and Lockheed Martin. And all three of these are possibly going to get sanctioned by China. But just keep in mind, it's just a possibility because they're selling stuff to Taiwan, and China does not like that right now. So that's a big bearish sentiment on Boeing.
Awesome. With the next play, we have Microsoft again to the downside.
Microsoft, make them fall below 208.
All right. And then we have NVIDIA.
Nvidia, make them fall below 521.50.
Okay. And last but not least, we have Roku.
Roku, make them pop below 216.
Awesome. So we are eyeing all of these stocks possibly to the downside only if they can break below the levels Tom listed. And if they do, we are eyeing them for day trades. So now for the comments from the previous episode. And with the first comment, we have Slow and Steady. He said, awesome video, and I agree with others. I am trading light this week and next. However, implied volatility will go up, and that might make me take more trades regarding credit spreads. I love the content and all the help you guys provide. So thank you so much for that awesome comment, Slow and Steady. And you're absolutely right. So he mentioned that implied volatility will go up, and that's exactly what happened today. We can see that the VIX can represent that. The VIX is up about 18% today. If we look at the implied volatility on the SPY, it had a really nice uptick today. On Friday, the implied volatility was about 27%. Right now, it's about 33, and that's a pretty big jump. So you're absolutely right, and I think you make a great point with just trading light this week and next week. I mean, we're coming into a very influential election. We're going to see some crazy movement, and it's never a bad thing to trade light. With the next comment, we have JR saying, are puts for Apple good for 10/30? So it's a very risky trade considering they do have earnings this week, and considering that it is a weekly option, it's just very risky. I mean, it can be good, but the amount of risk for that trade might be a little bit too much. I mean, it just depends on your risk tolerance. What do you think of Apple puts, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, they really had those iPhones coming out, and I really think that if the overall market's going down, I think that Apple will go down. But I think that the big thing is that there's just a lot of better opportunities out there right now. If the overall market falls, there's a lot of companies that aren't as fundamentally sound as Apple that'll fall a lot more, kind of like Workhorse, SPCE, even Boeing and Uber, even Nvidia. But Apple's just one of those big dogs, and it's just one of those stocks that doesn't like to fall. And we can see today, even though it's down, it was very volatile and started to come back towards the end of the day because Apple's just one of those big stocks that whenever it falls, people just love to grab more shares of it up. And, whenever the market falls, it falls, but it doesn't fall as much as a lot of other stocks do.
Yep. And then we have Richard S. saying, awesome job once again. So thank you so much for that comment, and great job with all of your trades in the Discord, StockedUp Discord. So thank you, Richard, for leaving a comment on yesterday's video. With the next comment, we have Candy saying, SHLX is really cheap now, although they announced to pay a large dividend as of 11/3/2020. So I'll take a look. SHLX. I mean, Tom, looking at this stock, I'm not a huge fan. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not either. The daily chart looks just not very good. I mean, it looks like it might try to come back, but it's just so flat over the past 2 months. Just pretty much trading between $9 and $10, and that's pretty crazy to see for a small stock like this. And SHLX, it has earnings coming up as well as a dividend, so it's just something that over the long term it just has not looked well. And honestly, I just wouldn't play it.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking on a weekly chart of this. I was looking, yeah, Tom, can you pull up yeah, exactly. So we can see as we look through the long term, it seems like this stock just loses more and more value over time. Personally, this isn't something that I would invest into, but if you know something that we don't in regards to this stock, it might be a good investment. But they do have earnings coming up and a dividend. But just looking at the chart over the long term, it's just not something I would play.
Yeah, and it's an oil play, so just keep in mind that over the long term, oil has been getting hit lately, and that's due to more electrical power and solar and different things like that.
Yep. So, Tom, do you have any last minute stocks, options, or any insight for the market for tomorrow?
Yeah, the big thing I'm really looking at right now is VXX. This is definitely it follows the VIX, which you were talking about earlier. And VXX popped 9% today, while the VIX popped about 20%. But I mean, that's good because you can play VXX options. And I actually did this today, and I have a picture here of my option that I played, and you can see I bought 2 puts right there, and I pretty much sold right at the top on this. So it was a pretty good little day trade on VXX, and I actually bought that planning to hold through the election with all the volatility going on. But whenever I made 50% in one day, I just decided to take the profits and run there. So, but I'm still going to be watching it for tomorrow and the next few days. Is I still think it has a lot of room to run. And whenever we look on the daily chart, whenever COVID started happening, you could see VXX ran from pretty much $10, $12 all the way up to $78. So it's a big runner, and it can move a lot, but just keep in mind it's a riskier option. So don't go all in on it by any means. Only play it light, and you really have to catch the runners on this one.
Yeah, VIX is a big mover, and who knows, you might have another better opportunity to enter into the VIX later in the week. Depending on market news. So thank you for sharing that, and I'll definitely have my eyes on the VIX for the rest of the week too. So thank you guys so much for watching this video to the end. Tom and I really appreciate all the support you guys give to the channel through the form of hitting that like button, commenting down below, and of course, subscribing. Comments really help grow the channel, and we really appreciate it. If you guys want to try out the options day trading bot, you can click the Stocked Up Options Alerts link in the description down below. And if you have any questions, let us know in the comments down below. But other than that, thanks for watching.